What made me decide to get help was I had been struggling for a long time, for a couple of years, and no one knew how bad my addiction had gotten. And I was sick all the time. I was an opiate abuser, and the withdrawals were terrible. And I finally admitted to a friend that I needed to get help. I decided to get help when I couldn't go on living the way I had been living. I'm a single mother. My daughter was 8 years old when I got to the point where I just couldn't live another day the way I had been living. I was an opiate abuser, and when I would go into withdrawal, it was excruciating, and I couldn't take care of my daughter, and she was spending a lot more time at her grandparents' house. And I just wanted to get help. I knew I needed to go somewhere to get help so that I could be the mother that I wanted to be. And I found it. I decided to get help when I couldn't go on living the way I had been living. I'm a single mother, and my daughter was being raised pretty much by her grandparents because I was in constant withdrawal from opiates. And I just couldn't be there for her the way I wanted to be. And I knew I needed help, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, and I wanted to be the mother that she deserved. I went to Thelma McMillan on the advice of a friend when I admitted to my best friend that my disease was much bigger than she knew, and I needed to go to rehab. She worked for a doctor, so she was familiar with Thelma McMillan, and she actually made the phone call for me and got the process started. I didn't look at any other rehab facilities. It was just the perfect place for me to go. It was close to home. I could go during the day while my daughter was at school. And once I got there, I loved the counselors. I loved the other patients. I loved learning about the disease that I had, and that it was a disease. And it was just really good luck that I got to go to Thelma McMillan. I went to Thelma McMillan on the advice of my best friend, who was the first person I told I needed to go to rehab. And she worked for a doctor, so she was familiar with Thelma McMillan. And on her recommendation, that was the first phone call made for me to start my journey into recovery. Once that phone call was made, I got to go and meet the staff before I became a patient, and I was so comfortable there. It was close to my home. What was appealing to me about Thelma McMillan was the staff was so friendly, and they were not just counselors, they were also my peers. They came from a background of addiction and really understood how I felt coming into recovery. And the hours that they provided, I was able to go while my daughter was at school. I enjoyed being there. I loved learning about the disease that I had, and knowing that it was a disease. It wasn't my lack of willpower, or just that I couldn't stop on my own. I learned that that without a little bit of knowledge and education on my disease, I would never get well. And I really got that. I got the foundation for my recovery at Thelma McMillan, and they taught me how to live my life beyond the days I spent at Thelma McMillan. I continue to come to Thelma McMillan as alumni because somebody was there when I was new that was alumni. And it impressed me so much that they cared enough to come and continue to share their recovery with us and to show us that recovery can be fun and we can go out and live our best lives if we can just follow the program of recovery. And I love going to meet the new people. I need to hear their stories. I need to hear what it's like as to be new in recovery again, because I never want to go back there. And I love to help people. It's just my nature, and I find that it's so rewarding and fulfilling for me to go back as much as I can to my gender groups and talk with the women and kind of help them and introduce them to the world of recovery outside of Thelma McMillan. I continue to come to Thelma McMillan as alumni because somebody was there when I was new that was alumni that kept coming, and it impressed me that people cared enough to keep coming back, and it showed me that that's what you do in recovery. You help the newcomer, you help the new person. I've always known that that's something that I would want to do once I finished my time at Thelma McMillan, and I graduated in November of 2013, and I've consistently been there for our gender groups on Wednesday mornings, and I get so much from meeting the new girls, women who came from where I came from, and I can show them a little bit of hope and that life gets a lot better in recovery, and to introduce them to the world of recovery outside of Thelma McMillan. Once we leave Thelma McMillan, we continue our journey in recovery, and it's a joy to watch the new women come into the world of recovery outside of Thelma McMillan.